Time skip home year 6. The kitchen of Potter Manor was the only place in Britain that felt truly safe. It smelled of cinnamon, old books, and the cedarwood aftershave Fleamont had worn for 40 years. "Move over, Prongs, you're hovering," Hayley teased, nudging James with her elbow as they stood over a large pot of stew. "I'm not hovering, I'm supervising," James retorted, though he was currently wearing a ridiculous apron Euphemia had enchanted to sing a cauldron full of hot, strong love whenever someone stirred too slowly. Across the wooden table, Fleamont was showing Euphemia a series of sketches for a new potion vial. He paused, looking up at his children with a soft, tired smile. The war was aging him. His hair was more silver than black these days, but his eyes still held that mischievous Potter spark. "You two look like you did when you were 7, Fleamont chuckled. "Fighting over who gets to lick the spoon." "Hayley cheated then, and she's cheating now," James grumbled, though he reached over and affectionately ruffled her hair. Euphemia stood up, walking over to wrap her arms around both of them from behind. She was small, but she was the sun around which they all orbited. She kissed James's cheek, then Hayley's. "My brave ones," she whispered. "No matter what the papers say, when you are in this kitchen, the world is quiet. Remember that." Hayley leaned back into her mother's warmth, her enchantment magic purring like a cat in her chest. For a moment, the dread of the future vanished. There was only the steam from the pot and the sound of her father's laughter. She didn't know it was one of the last times the 4 of them would be whole and happy. She only knew that she wanted to bottle this moment and keep it forever. The transition back to Hogwarts felt like being dunked in ice water. The hospital wing was a cavern of antiseptic smells and moonlight. Outside, the Scottish winter howled, a predatory wind clawing at the stone. Hayley sat on the edge of a chair, her hands tucked into her sleeves to stop their trembling. She had been there for hours. Madame Pomfrey had finally retired to her office, leaving the girl as the sole sentinel for the boy behind the screens. When the curtains finally parted, Remus looked less like a boy and more like a ghost. He was pale, his skin mapped with fresh, angry welts and deep, jagged lacerations that bled through the crisp white linen of his bandages. He moved as if his bones were made of glass. "Hayley," he rasped, his voice a dry husk. "You shouldn't be here. It's freezing." "I'm not leaving you, Remus." She stood up, moving with a quiet, practiced grace. She reached for the bowl of warm water and a fresh cloth. Remus tried to flinch away, a reflexive twitch of shame, but his body betrayed him with a hiss of pain. "I can do it," he whispered, his eyes downcast. "I'm used to it." "Let me," Hayley replied, her voice soft but unyielding. In the silence of the infirmary, she began to wash the dried blood from his collarbone. Her magic hummed beneath her skin, a low, thrumming vibration that seemed to pull the chill from the air around them. Remus watched her, his breath hitching. The intimacy of the moment was suffocating. Suddenly, he caught her wrist. His grip was weak, but his eyes were burning with a desperate, terrified intensity. "Why are you doing this?" He choked out. "I'm terrified, Hayley. I'm terrified of needing you. I'm terrified that one day you'll look at me, and all you'll feel is pity. That you'll wake up and realize that loving a monster is too much work for any sane person." Hayley didn't pull away. She leaned forward until her forehead brushed his. "I don't pity you, Remus Lupin," she whispered, the words vibrating against his skin. "I love you. And love isn't a chore. It's the only thing that makes the rest of this world bearable." The confession acted like a physical blow. Remus's emotional walls, built over years of self-loathing, didn't just crack, they disintegrated. He let out a broken, shuddering breath and leaned into her, burying his face in the crook of her neck. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, he pulled back just enough to press a slow, lingering kiss to her forehead, treating her as if she were the most sacred thing he had ever touched. Chapter 62. The boy who stayed time skip girls' dormitory. The girls' dormitory had a new, silent inhabitant. It started with a creak of a floorboard and the scent of leather and expensive tobacco. Sirius Black had stopped sleeping. The nightmares of Grimmauld Place, fueled by the growing darkness in the world, had become a relentless tide. Iris would wake up at 3:00 a.m. to find a dark shadow slumped at the foot of her bed. She never sent him away. She would simply shift over, lifting the duvet in an unspoken invitation. One night, the moon was obscured by heavy clouds, leaving the room in a charcoal haze. Iris felt Sirius sitting upright, his back against the bedpost. He wasn't moving, he wasn't even breathing deeply. "Sirius," she whispered. He didn't turn around. "Do you ever feel like happiness is just waiting to be taken back, Iris?" His voice was hollow, stripped of its usual bravado. "Like we're just borrowing it. And any second now, the universe is going to realize it made a mistake and demand it all back with interest." Iris sat up, her heart aching. This was the boy, beneath the leather jacket and the smirk. A boy who was terrified that his bloodline was a destiny he couldn't escape. "You aren't them, Sirius," she said, reaching out to trace the line of his jaw. "Sometimes I look in the mirror and I see my mother's eyes," he whispered. "I'm so dependent on you, Iris. It scares me. If you leave, there's nothing left of the person I'm trying to be." Iris didn't offer a platitude. She simply reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. She held on tight, anchored him to the present, until the tension finally bled out of his shoulders and he drifted into a shallow, fitful sleep. Chapter 63. The Castle Knows. Time skip classes. Hogwarts was changing. Or perhaps it was simply waking up to meet Hayley. As the news of the war grew grimmer, headlines of disappearances in the Daily Prophet, students weeping over letters in the Great Hall. Hayley's magic began to bleed into the stones of the school. When she felt a surge of panic during a transfiguration lesson, the candles in the room flickered and dimmed in unison. When she was lost in thought, the grand staircases would groan and shift specifically to lead her where she needed to go. Once, in a fit of overwhelming grief for a family friend who had gone missing, she had turned entirely invisible in the middle of the library, the light simply bending around her as if the castle were helping her hide. The portraits whispered "Potter" as she passed, their painted eyes full of a strange, ancient reverence. "She's vibrating," Remus whispered to James as they watched Hayley walk toward the lake. "The air around her. It feels like it's waiting for a command." Remus became her shadow. He didn't hover, but he was always there, a steadying hand on her waist when the whispers of the castle became too loud. One evening, standing alone in a deserted corridor, Hayley pressed her palm against the cold stone. "Hayley." The voice didn't come from a person. It hummed through the masonry, a deep tectonic vibration. The castle wasn't just a building anymore, it was an ally. And it was terrified for her.